So hi, Karen. A long time no
Hello.
see. I'm so glad to see you and reconnect with you through this program, Biblical Worldview. You know, in this segment of 30 minutes, I want to talk to you and share your conversation with our viewers. And hopefully next segment, 30 minutes, we'll talk to your husband, James, that we know each other for many years, right? Through
Yes.
Lincoln Christian University. So can you tell people what is your general background so that our viewers will know you better?
Yes. I am a Midwestern farm girl. I'm the seventh of 9 kids. My parents, my mother was a school teacher, one-room school teacher. She's still alive. She's 89, almost 90. My father died when I was in high school, but he was a farm businessman. And they met because she boarded at their house while she was teaching in Missouri. And I went to college and I actually have 4 degrees. I have an undergrad in music education, K-12 teaching. I have a master's of arts in biblical studies, theology, and a master of ministry in music ministry, and a PhD in K-12 educational administration.
All the way.
And yes, I have all the way to the post-hole digger.
I remember you started very basic, I would say, farm girl. I think I heard your story before. I said, wow, you achieved very high in your career and ministry.
I mean, I probably have a different perspective of farm, mostly because I was on a big farm, and my mother was an educator, and my father was an only child who had things, so it wasn't a poor farm. We were poor, but by everyone else's comparison, we weren't poor. But I went on to school locally to a state university and taught in my hometown after graduation for a couple of years. Then I decided to get biblical education and went to Cincinnati, Ohio, and did 2 master's degrees and met my husband there who was in ministry, and ended up going to Michigan with him. Was overqualified to teach anything at that point. So I was literally in a restaurant flipping chicken and cleaning buildings at a battery shop, but ended up teaching private schools, Christian schools, public schools. Decided to go on to Michigan State for my PhD, and then ended up, following him in ministry around the country, and then in Lincoln where we met. Mm-hmm. And I became the director of teacher ed and an associate dean there, as well as a full professor.
How many years at Lincoln?
I want to say 13 years. I had some part-time stuff after I left full-time, but 13 years, I think. And then I started working for Grand Canyon University in their College of Doctoral Studies. Mm-hmm. And I've been a chair for doctoral learners since 2015, I think. So, but I've taught, currently I'm teaching at Central Christian College of the Bible in Moberly, Missouri, but just one class there in the undergrad, and then I teach doctoral learners mostly.
So basically, you have been teaching high school, your expertise are kindergarten, you teach...
I've taught everything. I've taught everything.
Public college, Christian university, and you are everywhere, So
I have been everywhere.
We went to China together, right? How many times?
Yes.
Twice or?
Actually, I don't know. I think we were there 4 times. It might have been 5 times.
Oh, wow.
But,
yeah. So, yeah. I mean, in China, in Nanjing, in Wenzhou, you are the star. I mean, so many parents come to you to learn how to do the parenting, kindergarten. You trained kindergarten principals, and we had some Chinese educator from high school, kindergarten, came to Lincoln to be trained. And so that was, I hate to say the good old times. I just say we did what we can and really made a difference and made a contribution, and you served well. You did a wonderful job. And so,
China treated me well, and we did. We had groups that went both ways. I took a group over there on my last trip from the public school to work with special education, speech therapy and stuff. And
that's a national or international conference. Is that
yes. And the conference actually was canceled the year we went, so we just went around to schools. And then but we did quite a lot of stuff. And then we had several groups come here, and I sent students there for the summer. I sent a bunch of students when they showed up, I want to say in Nanjing, as you said, they saw my picture hanging. They took a picture of me and sent it back and said, "Look, you're famous." And I was like, we know the same people.
I believe, we did what we can, made a difference, made the contributions, and as whatever the current situation, geopolitical conflicts, and Christians can still pray and it's still hope, right?
Yes.
So, and tell people, what are your specialties? I know kindergarten, how do you call the early childhood education? I translated for you, and eye-opening. I would say, wow. It's a reservoir of the treasure. I mean, I saw you in Wenzhou teach kindergarten, maybe 4 years old, and they just listen to you, all quiet. Chinese kids are not easy to be quiet. So tell people your expertise.
I think I've been blessed with several things, but one is how to learn, teaching, how to work with parents, because teaching is more than just going to school. It's about life. It's about everything you do. And it's incorporating all the things around you, including the people, and learning about culture, learning about the things that are necessary to move between cultures or just within your culture as an expert. When you look at my degrees, you see a variety of things, my experiences, a variety of things. But I think the biggest thing is education, learning, partnering with families and educators. And then I think the other piece is the Christian aspect of it. So trying to meld all that together and realize that that is the best case.
So our program is a biblical worldview. So from biblical worldview standpoint, how do you explain to people what is biblical worldview and why it is important to Christians and parents and churches?
Biblical worldview is how we understand everything around us through a Christian view, a biblical view, how God would have us look at it. It is not the same as understanding it from a worldview beyond biblical or the Christian view. It's how does God want us to see this world? And how does he interpret it? How do we interpret it? And then how do we apply that? How do we apply that to our lives? So that's what it is. It's understanding, interpreting, and applying it.
So how do you do that through classroom or teaching?
Well, everybody does it differently. I have so many experiences where it is a Christian classroom, and then I have experiences where it is a non-Christian classroom. And particularly in the United States, but many other countries, you have to teach that way too. We call it separation of church and state, but we can still be who we are. In a public setting, we can't just expect or demand that of other people. In a Christian setting, it's a little different. But how do you apply that? First off, if I'm in a Christian setting, I can be very open, very straightforward, and I can address it as I see fit with the topic or the situation or the needs. In a non-Christian setting, it's who I am. It's how I'm viewed. It's what people see in me. Am I a reflection of God's work and creation? or am I a reflection of the brokenness of the world? That comes off with how they interpret me, how they understand me, and how they apply that to their lives. If I become something that they want to be, they will try and put on those aspects that they find endearing.
Because I translate for you. So I got to close up to watch your way to communicate, and really touched me. And we had one group of Lincoln students went to Wenzhou and have their the summer internship and teaching, and sometimes students upset, they are not feel comfortable, maybe they want to go out, they want so you as part of the group leader and also a professor, I saw you're not very straightforward to Christians. You're very care. You're very tender to communicate. I say, wow, you almost just suggesting to the students. If for me, I would say, you can't do that. So even if I'm using American style, straightforward. So I really appreciate and admire your way of communicating, a way of a Christian attitude. So at one time I translated for you, I realized you had 2 adopted child.
I had three adopted children. Yes.
Children, right.
Well, all 3 of my children went through a horrible home lives, but change is hard for everyone. And for them to come into a new home, it was very hard. So of course they didn't do that easily. My daughter, she was what we call a runner. She'd run away from home, and we'd go after her, or I'd go after her. But all 3 of our kids, there isn't a birthday, there isn't a Mother's Day, a Father's Day that they don't write, "Thank you for saving me." They were on a path to just destroy themselves because they hurt so much. And now, you look at my daughter, she's a good business person. She has her own children. You would not know what she came out of. But it's because she's changed. It's because those tough moments as parents. But yeah, she had a pretty rough life.
Right. So I think that's one of the stories. She ran away, and how get reconnected, and so.
Yeah, her running away didn't last more than a night, but she ran away twice. One of those, she ran away. When she left, she stood at the door. My husband had come in because her brother was having some problems, dropped her off and told me she was going to run away. She went back to her bedroom, grabbed things when she came in, and he went to go get her brother. And so I stood there, and she had her brother's shoes on. She had things that she wanted to take with her. And I told her she had to leave them. And she looked at me, why? And I said, because those are my daughters. They stay in this house. If you aren't my daughter, then you leave them. So she did take her brother's shoes. I didn't make her take those off. But that told me that she was coming back, because she wasn't going to get her own shoes dirty, because she wasn't carrying those. She was carrying her younger brother, who had huge feet. And he was in the other room. And I remember I yelled at him, not loudly or anything, just so he could hear, and said, "Hey, your sister's running away. I have to go get her. I'll be back and I'll fix dinner for you." And he's like, "Okay." So I took off. I followed her down a road. It started raining. I took the big old huge minivan and put the flashers on, and we were out the country, and she took off in a cornfield over to the right, so I couldn't follow her, where they had just plowed it up. So with the rain, she had mud all over these shoes and she couldn't run. So she decided to come back to the road. Then she went off the other way, where there was corn in the field that hadn't been harvested. And I could see her. She didn't know this because it was dark, but she had one of those team sweatshirts with numbers on it that reflected. And so every time she rose up, I could see her because my car lights would just flash and I knew exactly where she was, though she had no clue. And eventually, we weren't very far. We're probably a mile plus away from home. And I rolled the window down and I said, look, I'm not going to stay here any longer. I'm going home to fix your brother dinner. I'll give you 3 minutes. I rolled the window up, waited 3 minutes. When it hit 3, I rolled it down, said, are you coming? Nothing happened. I rolled it up and I just drove away. So I knew she was scared of the dark. I knew she didn't want to do this. So I just, I didn't know what to do, but that's what I did. And I drove back home, did not look back. And she had to have ran from the moment I went by. She had to have ran because she showed up probably 4 minutes later, all wet and muddy, going, why did you leave me? I was yelling after you. I was running in the road. And I said, sorry, your time was up. I mean, she's thankful for that. You don't know what to do. You just do the best you can. And throughout scripture, God always calls us back. He is a God unlike any other God that other faiths believe in. And as hard as my kids were, or anybody's kids are, as hard as we are on God, he's always going to call us back.
So 3 of children are all doing well right now?
Yes, they're all doing well. My oldest is a corrections officer. My daughter is, that she's part of a marketing team. And she and her husband are partial owners in a restaurant that's doing really well.
Wow.
In Springfield, Illinois. My youngest one just finished EMT training and is in Indiana, Columbus, Indiana, and he is going on with his training there. And so, yeah, they're all doing well. My oldest 2 are married with children. My youngest one is, being the youngest one, hasn't made up his mind about life yet.
Talking about raising the kids and being parenting, and you trained so many parents in China. You did even radio and TV kind of a program in Wenzhou. And so as far as you observe the Chinese American cultural differences, what do you would suggest to Chinese parents from Christian worldview perspective?
We're all parents. Chinese parents and I, we all learn as we go. My advice comes from my experience more than it comes from anything, having lived through something. It's like, wow, I wish I'd known that when I was younger. The Chinese culture, the cool thing about it is they spend a lot of time in learning, and they are willing to even be sacrificial in finding tutors and helpers, and to even send their kids away for education, which is very hard for me to do. So my advice there is more about me. I would say keep your kids close, treasure them. They are a gift. They will go away eventually. And some Chinese parents do that, some don't. I would also say let them be kids. There is a culture of being perfect. There is a culture of being an expert and working hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's too much. These kids can't be kids. They can't be creative. They're demanded to be creative. They're demanded to do things. But I see that parents are fearful of what the school says or a teacher says, so they don't like to collaborate. And that isn't good for education in my mind. But it's hard to do that if a teacher is going to judge a kid based on, how much a parent pays them. It's hard to do that, but I would say treasure your kids, which they do. The Chinese culture in China, they treasure kids more so than Americans treasure their kids sometime.
Very good. You trained because you have a program training school teachers in Illinois through Lincoln. So you trained many teachers.
Yes.
In Illinois, they get a license, they get an internship, and So, do you see hope in American education?
Oh yes. We're in the pandemic right now, and there are no right answers for anyone. people handle it differently, different communities handle it differently, and have been affected differently. I see a lot of teachers retiring early because they can, because they just don't want to deal with the pandemic. So there is going to be, and there is a teacher shortage. I see people that don't worry at all, and I see others that are extremely worried because they've been affected. There is no right and wrong. We all have to deal with it the way we see fit. American culture, I do think, we are lucky. We have the public school. If we can't afford to send our kids to school, the government says we will send them, and pays for it. We have the private school. If we want to have a Christian worldview taught, and we can afford it, or we can find the money for it, it's there. So I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I would say there's a lot of options, good options for Americans.
Yeah, so the world changed so much, and not only pandemic, we most of the time stuck at home, but also maybe this is not the time to go to China to teach Christian education as we did before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So our ministry was Chinese Pastors of Fellowship, and part of the program, YouTube program we interviewed you, is that we are thinking of online Christian education, to help the Christian churches in China, Chinese Christian parents and the younger generation. And my question to you is that, is there any room or opportunity we can work together, and we can invite you to, to be our advisor? And
yeah, I do think there's always the option to do that. I also think that, as I said before, that it's really important to collaborate, to understand what's going on in the different cultures, because, what is happening in America is not necessarily what's happening in China. It might be for some people, but it's not for everyone.
Mhm.
So to work together and to collaborate and to talk and to share, yes.
Very good. I appreciate very much your time and friendship, and also hopefully, and I pray that God will give us opportunity to work together again for serving Chinese churches and students. So thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you
for the
very much.
opportunities too.